Good afternoon and welcome to Melbourne. I'm back. I've been back here for the past 2 weeks, almost exactly 2 weeks now, a bit over actually, 2.5 weeks back in Melbourne, back from my trip, about a 3-month trip across Vietnam and Bali. And I basically just want to give you guys a bit of an update as to, what's going on, what I've been up to, and a bit of my thoughts related to what Vietnam's like in comparison to Bali these days. So yeah, I didn't really have huge expectations when it came to Vietnam, because I obviously got word from a lot of people that it's a great place to visit and whatnot, and I had been to Bali before and didn't really think too much of it, just purely because I went to like the main areas of Bali, Kuta, and also to Seminyak, which are like jam-packed full of Australians most of the time, and this time was absolutely no exception whatsoever. So yeah, I suppose my first bit of the trip was through Ho Chi Minh City. I ended up spending way too long there, just because I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. I was waiting for a few people to come over, and I was kind of on my own, so decided to kind of wait it out there for a little bit. Look, Ho Chi Minh City for me didn't have a huge amount of character. I actually stayed there for 2 weeks. I ended up staying with a friend of mine for the first week or so. That was pretty fun on the outskirts of Ho Chi Minh City, and then end up going into Ho Chi Minh City for a week or so, where I was kind of, I suppose one thing that I would do differently, I spent a lot of, I think this was kind of the first trip that I've ever done where I stayed in hotels basically the entire time, which if you're on your own can get, I think in comparison to hostels, can get kind of lonely. And for me, like I enjoy being around people and kind of doing things in groups as opposed to doing things by myself. So I think that if I was to do that again, the times that I was alone, I would definitely be, going into hostels to kind of meet like-minded travelers and whatnot, even if there is a bit of an age disparity, me being 38. So for me, Ho Chi Minh City was probably my least favorite out of every place that I went to in Vietnam. Probably because I didn't meet a huge amount of people because I was in hotels, and I didn't really feel like the place had a huge amount of character in comparison to other places that I went to. I then went up to Da Nang. Da Nang, I don't know, Da Nang for me was like one of my favorite places. I ended up, and look, I'm always drawn to like kind of the beach towns. I suppose the weather was amazing, the food was great. I met some really cool people there. That was the first time I actually got myself into a hostel, and that was purely because I was actually feeling quite lonely in Ho Chi Minh City for that week the week or so that I was there, kind of by myself without any friends there. So Da Nang for me was awesome. I'll always see that place as like I think my favorite place in all of Vietnam. As I said, the food's really good. It's really easy to meet people when you're staying at a hostel. I really like the layout of the place. It's kind of like the Miami of Vietnam. That was a place that I probably had the most fun, and I ended up staying there on 2 separate occasions. The first time was about 10 days. The second time was almost 10 days as well. So I ended up staying there for like 20 days out of the 2 months that I was in Vietnam. So highly recommend going to Da Nang. And then I went back down to Ho Chi Minh City to meet up with a couple of people that I knew. Did a lot of the touristy stuff in Ho Chi Minh City, which was quite fun. Went to Phan Viet, which is just outside of Ho Chi Minh City, and went to a few hostels and bars and things like that around that area. I highly recommend going there if possible, just to get outside of Ho Chi Minh City. Now, then we ended up actually going back to Da Nang. As I said, I highly recommended to the people that I was meeting up with to come up to Da Nang, because we're going to have a great time there. And that's where we ended up staying there for an extra 10 days. The 10 days there were, quite fun. A lot of partying, lots of food, lots of drinks. Just really like a lot of lazing by the pool, and just generally having a good relaxing time. Then we went out to Hoi An as well, which is just outside of Da Nang. It's about a 50-minute drive, or maybe even less than that, outside of Da Nang. And Hoi An's a place with a lot of character. It's kind of, old school Vietnam. Really, really enjoyed that place. If you're looking for, any type of clothing, like really good quality clothing, suits, dresses, shoes, all that type of stuff, that's the place to go for those types of things, and it's at a pretty good price also. Then we went up to the north part, Hanoi. Hanoi was a place with a massive amount of character. Like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi are night and day when it comes to, just how the city's laid out and just the overall vibe of the place. So if I had to pick between those two major cities, it would definitely be Hanoi out of those two. Ended up going to Dalat as well. Dalat's a nice little quiet town. We ended up asking ChatGPT what we should do in terms of the logistics of how much time we had left versus, which little town around that area would be the best in terms of logistics for us, considering we didn't have a huge amount of time left. So we ended up sitting on Dalat, which, really enjoyed that little town. Very quiet in comparison to, the cities in Da Nang and Hoi An. So I definitely recommend checking that place out as well. We also did the Ha Giang Loop. Ha Giang Loop was one of the highlights of the trip. I actually got told from an Aussie guy in Ho Chi Minh City when I first got there, that was the first thing that he recommended, was to go to the Ha Giang Loop if I'm ever up the north part. So that'll cost you around about, I think it was like $300 or so for the 3 days. That was amazing. Just the views, the scenery, getting on the back of a bike and not being able to like distract yourself with using your phone or music or anything like that. It gave you a good amount of time. It was like kind of like a meditation on the back of a motorbike. It was so nice. We got 2 days out of 3 of sun, met some people on the same tour that we were doing, and generally had a really, really good time going through the mountains up there in the north part of Vietnam. And that was kind of the end of the trip. That was the 2 months that we spent there. Overall, I think that Vietnam is becoming a lot more popular, and there's good reasons for it. It is so much. It's basically going to ruin if you go anywhere else around that area, especially Bali. It'll actually ruin your trip to Bali. That's what it did to me in terms of like the locals. The locals are really nice, and that you don't really feel like they have the objective to siphon money out of you in exchange for their niceness. They seem like really genuine. The only problem is that the English spoken in Vietnam is a whole lot less than in Bali, just purely because there has been less tourists there over the last few decades. So in terms of the costing of everything, it's literally like a third of the cost in Vietnam for most things. Drinks, food, accommodation's probably about half the cost. So if you had a choice between the two, I would definitely go Vietnam, because I think that everything you can get in Bali you can get in Vietnam at a fraction of the cost. Bali was really cool. Spent a month in Bali after Vietnam. Ended up doing a lot more than what I was planning on doing. Canggu, Seminyak, Kuta, Uluwatu, and it was also Ubud. So I did 5 of those, 2 days in each one, so 10 days for 5 different places. Ubud's really cool. It's like a nice little hippie place. It's got like a nice monkey forest there if you love monkeys. I definitely recommend going doing that. Uluwatu is a bit more on the pricey side. Canggu, I honestly don't know why Canggu is that popular. It's got a really shitty beach. It's really like a, I don't know, it seems as though like a lot of Instagram people there, so you're going to run into a lot of attractive people there, just in general, to be honest. Good nights out there at Mexicola and Old Man's. If you get a chance to go there, go to Old Man's first for the cheap drinks, and then Mexicola more so for the vibes. I reckon they're just across the road from each other, so those 2 places are going to be the go-to if you want to have a night out in Canggu. And then Kuta, Seminyak, yeah, if you like you know, old Aussies hanging out and drinking together and listen to Aussie music and eating meat pies, then yeah, Kuta and Seminyak are the place to go. Not my favorite, but I end up probably staying way too long there. And then after that, I ended up going to the east side. So I kind of wanted to get out of Bali because I'd been to Bali a few times, and you know, I had another couple of weeks to go, so I ended up going across to the Gili Islands, so Gili T. Gili T was cool. It's obviously a really small little island. A bit to do there, but I'd recommend maybe 3 days there. 3 days on that island was probably enough. Go diving, go out, go have some food. That was quite enjoyable. And then I ended up booking it was a 4-day boat cruise across to Lombok and Komodo Islands, the Komodo dragons, and ended up swimming with whale sharks. There was baby sharks, and then there was like swimming with turtles as well. So that was a great tour. I met some really cool people. It was about 300 Australian dollars for the 4 days. Got a little bit of seasickness. The sea can be a little bit rough at times, but all round that was quite fun as well. And then I ended up on Flores, and I was about to book my flight back to Bali to catch my flight back to Australia, and it ended up it was going to end up costing me like 800 Australian dollars for the 1 hour flight. So I ended up having to wait an extra 3 days on Flores in order to get the $100 flight, which is a bit disappointing because there's not a huge amount to do on Flores. Flores is really an island that's like where you'd send yourself and then you'd go out and do all the islands and Komodo Island and, you know, swimming whale sharks, all that type of stuff. I happened to do that before I went to Flores, so on Flores there's not a huge amount to do, so be prepared to be really fucking bored if you go to Flores for too long. But I didn't really have an option if I wanted to save myself that, you know, $600-700 in flight costs. So those islands off the east coast, I'd recommend going on a tour. 3-4 days on a boat. That was amazing. Not something I really had in mind when I went to Indonesia, but it was something that I did not regret once I was there. And for the price that you pay, it was all inclusive, like your accommodation, food. The only thing that you'd have to bring yourself, and I'd recommend bringing yourself if you want to have a few drinks, is bringing your own drinks, because it's a bit more expensive to buy them just before you get on the boat through the boating company. So look, I think both Bali and other parts of Indonesia are fairly enjoyable, but if I had to go back to a place again, it would definitely be Vietnam, just really because I feel as though most of the things that you get in Bali and Indonesia you can get in Vietnam, and you don't have to pay 3 times the price for it. So that's going to be it for this video. A bit of a different one, just purely because I'm not traveling around in a different area of the world. I'm in Melbourne for the next 2 weeks. So my next video is going to be my plans over the coming months. I'll be leaving Australia again in 2 weeks' time, and I'll be outside of the country for a couple of months before I come back to Australia in December, and then head off again in January. So I'll give you a bit more of a detailed description of what the plans are, what I can look forward to doing and filming for whoever the hell is watching. I'm so happy. A small little milestone. It just clicked over 100 subscribers. Look at me go, you know, onwards and upwards from here. So we'll just see how we go. I'll be bringing you another video over the next week or so, and then once I'm away, it'll be back to, you know, a couple of videos a week. So if it's the first video you watch of mine, if you can like and subscribe, that'd be sick. And I will promise you to bring as many interesting, information-filled videos as I possibly can for you. But for now, I will continue on this road trip, heading out to a place called Geelong in Victoria to visit a friend, and I will see you guys in the next one.